Folks, welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. It's so great to be with you. I got some great news. One, President Trump is looking really, really good. So his town hall yesterday was fabulous with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And I mean fabulous. And he made some news about tariffs. And I've never been a big guy on tariffs. I believe that you cannot have free trade without fair trade. And President Trump really helped me move in this direction. As a free marketeer, I always thought tariffs were not good. But if China is waging war on you and China is cheating, well, then maybe tariffs are the answer. And this is a great tool that President Trump used in the past, and I am all for them now. So he's making news with the tariffs he's going to put on China and the tariffs he's going to put on Mexico that's also building Chinese cars in Mexico. And then, thinking they can send them here to the United States. Not good. So all of this has President Trump in a really good position. Let me show you what I mean by good position. This, folks, is an electoral college map. Excuse me for the cough. Electoral college map by Nate Silver. Nate Silver, you know him as a pollster. He also does statistical outcomes. This is the electoral college. It is the most important predictor of a presidential election. And look at this. When you look at the numbers here, President Trump, 312 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 226. And as you look at the map, look at the states he is winning here. Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and of course, states like Florida and others, Missouri, all of these states that are so important, President Trump is winning. So yes, Kamala Harris wins what? The East, the Northeast and the West Coast. And you got Colorado and New Mexico in the middle. Truth is, I don't know how New Mexico is not a red state either. But when you look at this map, it is fabulous. So this prediction, folks, is also backed up by Real Clear Politics. Average prediction of the Electoral College. 281 to 257. Not quite as good as Nate Silver's prediction. Some of the differences here, it looks like Wisconsin, that they have President Trump losing. But, you know, all these other states, it has Nevada, President Trump losing as well. So all the other states, though, Pennsylvania, going to Trump. Wisconsin, going to Trump. These are very important states, and I believe one of the reasons why President Trump has this idea of tariffs now is because these are manufacturing states. When you look at Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, you think Michigan workers want steel and foreign autos coming in? No. So President Trump says he puts these big tariffs on, shut all that down unless you build plants here in the United States. Put Americans to work. Have at it. This is the kind of brilliance that I love from President Trump. So we're going to get into his tariff plan today. Plus, I want to talk about reparations. Kamala Harris refuses to answer questions on reparations. I want to get into the scam of attaching the SAVE Act to the continuing resolution. Mike Johnson and some Republicans up there think they're pulling the wool over conservatives' eyes. We already passed the SAVE Act. Why would we be trying to pass it again? Let the Senate vote on the SAVE Act right now and tell them, you know what, this continuing resolution, we want a real spending bill. We got 12 bills rolled up in one. Now we're going to add another to make it 13. This is not how Washington is supposed to operate. We'll break that all down for you. And the latest in President Trump's assassination attempt. There are some real serious ties to Iran. And remember, Iran had a plot against President Trump's life. So here's the question for you. Is the Secret Service just pretending to protect President Trump? Or are they really protecting him? Are they trying to make it look like they're protecting President Trump when they're not really protecting him? There's some evidence of that. We will break all of that down on the program today. But before we start, let me tell you about one of our sponsors, causanow.com, causanow.com. Become a member today. This is about a buyer's club. It's about being part of an army, being part of a community that I promise you will help move the country forward. So causanow.com, you can buy just about any household product you need. You should never shop at Amazon, Walmart, Target again. Take the fight to China by buying only American-made products made by a family-owned company that's been around for decades with millions of happy customers. I am a customer, by the way. causanow.com. You got pasture-raised beef, no hormones. All of these products, by the way, no toxicity. They're all natural products in your house, so no one's going to get hurt with having these things. They're free from toxic chemicals. And again, all products made in the USA by American companies. You got to get with causanow.com. Become a member. Go to /grant, causanow.com /grant. I promise you, you will not regret it. All right, folks, let's get the show started. All right, last night, President Trump makes huge news. I think it was. To use one of President Trump's terms, huge news on this issue of tariffs. Now, let me say about tariffs. I have never been a fan of tariffs until President Trump came into office the first time around. So as a conservative, we typically don't like tariffs, but President Trump has taught me something, and he's taught me that you cannot have free trade without fair trade. And countries like Mexico, countries like China, do not operate in a fair fashion. So you can't have free trade with them. In a perfect world, if we were sending our goods over to China, they weren't putting tariffs on them. They were sending goods here. We're not putting tariffs on them. That's free and fair trade. That's how it's supposed to work. It doesn't work that way. So what I've realized is you can use tariffs as a real tool to hammer back against your economic aggressors, which I would consider China as. And it's really interesting if you think about this now. China is using Mexico to put the screws to the United States of America. So, China is building car manufacturing plants in Mexico, and they want to send things here, send their cars here to the United States. Well, President Trump says no way, and we'll get to Mexico here in a moment, but he also talks about China and putting 100% tariffs on Chinese goods. Now, you think that might send the cost of everything skyrocketing. Well, it would, except Trump has a plan for that. And notice, President Trump has a plan where Kamala Harris has zero plans for anything. She'll tell you her grand ideas, but she won't tell you how to do it. Well, President Trump tells us how he's going to do it. If you build a plant in the United States, well, then what you build here, we won't put tariffs on. So if China comes over and builds a car plant in the United States, hires American workers, no tax on that. Now, am I thrilled about China building things here? No. But would I rather have them manufacturing plants here in the United States than them manufacturing over there in Taiwan or Beijing, sending them here? No. So this was President Trump on this idea of tariffs.
If I say you have to pay 100%, China pays a big, but I didn't do the big number yet. But if I say you have to pay 100 or 200%, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to say, second sense, I hope you don't mind this. However, if you build your plant in Detroit, or if you build it in Michigan, or if you build it anywhere in the United States for that matter, it seems to be the right location, but we're going to have more fun. So I'm telling them about Michigan, and I'm saying, this story's getting a little bit long because I'm talking about Michigan. I happen to be in another state, but everybody loved it because they know you. You're recognized for this. We're going to get, now, they go from paying 100% tariff to paying nothing. All they have to do is build their factory and spend their hundreds of millions of dollars in your state. This will be like taking candy from a baby.
Amen, Mr. President. Now, that's an idea. It's a plan. It's laid out. And here's the deal. It is so very simple. That's the most amazing part about President Trump's tariff plan. Is it simple? And it makes common sense, which, by the way, is the exact platform that he's running on. So you think about this. Kamala Harris, and we'll get to some of her comments, during the her sit down with the National Association of Black Journalists. She says a lot about nothing. President Trump will give you specifics about these plans. Now think about it. This roundtable, and by the way, the town hall format that he did last night with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor from Arkansas, I thought it was great. I really did. I thought it was better than his rallies. And I like watching the rallies, but, you start to see, well, I'll say with my case, you start to see 6 rallies. You've seen them all. Not one, you've seen them all. Everybody's got to go to a Trump rally, right? But you start to see this, it's a rally. But this town hall was fabulous. He was so calm. It was like you were sitting in a living room talking to him. People asked questions. They asked great questions, unlike the media who asked disastrous questions of J.D. Vance that he had an event just before. So here, this is J.D. Vance.
I want to just address the elephant in the room here, which is, of course, just a couple of days ago, my running mate, my dear friend and our next president, was nearly assassinated again. 2 assassination attempts in as many months. And I think that it's time to say to the Democrats, to the media, to everybody that has been attacking this man and trying to censor this man for going on 10 years, cut it out or you're going to get somebody killed.
That's a great message, by the way, to the media. That's the message you need to the media. Now, the media at the J.D. Vance event, I'm going to get back to tariffs here in a second. Here's what they asked J.D. Vance. He takes 3 questions at the end of his speech last night. They ask him about abortion. Now, of course, J.D. Vance answers, it's settled law of the land. That's not our thing. President Trump's not going to institute a national abortion ban. Yet they ask about how many times does President Trump have to say he's not going to do it? They ask him about gay marriage. Gay marriage has been settled for a long time. That's not on the Republican platform right now, but they are trying to gaslight the American people, the media is. And then the New York Times asked a question, something about, is there one thing that you would say that you can't say? Talk about a trap. Well, of course, they got boos to those questions. So the media is setting up traps for Trump and Vance. And meanwhile, Kamala gets away with everything. But here's the thing. If you aren't hiding what you believe, okay, let's put it that way. If you aren't hiding what you believe, well, doing interviews is very easy because you don't have to worry about dancing around the issues. Kamala Harris is hiding everything she believes. This is why Trump can say something like this. Kamala Harris would never come down with a specific plan like this about Mexico. This is the first time we've ever heard this, a 200% tariff.
So they're building. So I said, where would I go? And let's go take a look at a beauty. He said, well, we'll have to go to Mexico. I said, wait a minute. I'm not interested. No, I want to know here. He said, here we don't build top of the line. We build smaller plants. We just, there's just not that kind of a thing. And I said, isn't it sad? He feels that too. He's a United States guy. But he said, if you want to see the big ones, you're going to have to go to Mexico. They're owned and built by China in Mexico. And there are a number of them going up right now. And they think they're going to make their cars there and they're going to sell them across our line. And we're going to take them and we're not going to charge them tax. We're going to charge them, I'm telling you right now, I'm putting a 200% tariff on, which means they're unsellable. Unsellable in the United States. And
now think about it, folks. That is China that's getting hammered through Mexico, by the way. When you have a country to the south of your border that literally is right there on the United States, Mexico, working with our number one enemy, China, they're literally working with China to crush America economically. When you think about Mexico, Mexico should be one of the greatest nations in the world. They have natural resources like oil and gas. They have a workforce population like none other. They are surrounded by water. When you want to export goods, being surrounded by water where they are on the globe should set Mexico apart. And yet Mexico's a third world country. A third world country working with China to try to attack us economically. That's unacceptable. President Trump realizes this. Kamala Harris doesn't realize any of this. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing when it comes to all of this stuff. All right, I want to talk about Kamala Harris and her time with NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists. Word spaghetti, I don't know what you call it. It was a disaster, quite frankly, in my mind. We will get to that. Folks, you want to be in Bitcoin, but the wild swings, the volatility scares the crap out of you. I don't blame you. So you know what I've done? I get monthly returns now, literal cash flow, being in Bitcoin, but only in mining. So the secret to success when it comes to Bitcoin is in the mining. And this is what Get21Now.com does. It's a company called NFN8. I'm involved with them. I've already started getting my checks. This is institutionalized giant warehouses of these servers. This is an impressive operation. They've been doing this for a long time. I've vetted them. I've talked to them. I want you to talk to them too. I used to buy businesses, right? I'd have to deal with employees and angry customers and paying bills and all of the headaches that come along with that. Folks, I get 21% now on my money, paid monthly. This is cash flow, baby. And look, NASDAQ is already trading Bitcoin as a commodity. This is real stuff. The future is now. Get21now.com. You want to have cash flow, monthly payments, talk to these guys, all right? Talk to them. They've promised stuff to me, and they have lived up to every promise they have made to me. Get21now.com. Get21now.com. Pay them a visit today and tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. Listen to me. I keep telling you, when you believe in what you're talking about, when you believe in your policies and principles, when you believe in your values, it is very easy to run for office because you don't have to be afraid of hiding anything. And here's the other big thing. And if you're in business or you go to work, the number one tip I can give you is know your material. If you know your material, you got to do a report on something, you got to do a study. If you're an accountant and you go through the books, you better know your material. Don't just push numbers in and forget about why you're pushing numbers into QuickBooks or why you're adding numbers into the spreadsheet. Don't forget about that. You've got to know it. Well, Kamala Harris doesn't know her stuff. And what she does know is radicalism. What she does know is communism. And so with that, what do you think Kamala Harris wants you to know? Well, she's running for president in a country with such a split divide, and I think this country majority is probably center-right, though many people don't understand that they're center-right because they're confused and they've been duped by the mainstream media. But she knows she can't go hardcore radical. So she has to dance around the issues. And you compound the problem by not knowing the issues, not knowing your policies, not knowing what is best for America. Well, it turns into a disaster. So Kamala Harris was on with this association, National Association of Black Journalists. She had to sit down with them. It was her first really solo on a national level. She did this Philadelphia interview, which, you know, you can check out a prior podcast, by the way, of mine, where we went through that and just broke it down about how bad it was. But she's a rambler. Lord, I was born a rambling man, but her a woman. With the way she's pushing transgender, who knows? This is Kamala Harris.
Is there a specific policy change as president that you would do in our helping of Israel?
We need to get this deal done, and we need to get it done immediately, and that is my position, and that is my policy. We need to get this deal done.
But in the way that we send weapons, in the way that we interact as their ally, are there specific policy changes? Well,
Eugene, for example, one of the things that we have done that I am entirely supportive of is the pause that we've put on the 2,000-pound bombs. And so there is some leverage that we have had and used. But ultimately, the thing that is going to unlock everything else in that region is getting this deal done.
So again, how are you going to get the deal done? Now, I think it's newsworthy to say that she supports the pause on this, on these 2,000-pound bombs. That's hurting Israel. That is news. I don't think the mainstream media covers it as news. But again, she doesn't answer the question. Now, why do you want a deal when in one breath you say Israel can defend itself and another breath you say we need a ceasefire? That's not a deal. If Israel's allowed to defend itself, how could you call for a ceasefire? That's not defending itself. And Israel has literally been the victim of broken ceasefires over and over and over again.
But what do you say to those that say that's not enough, that stopping the 2,000-pound bombs the one time wasn't enough, that this administration, your possible administration, has to do more?
Well, we are doing the work of putting the pressure on all parties involved to get the deal done. But let me be very clear also. I support Israel's ability to defend itself. And I support the need for Palestinians to have dignity, self-determination, and security as we move forward and get a two-state deal done. But right now, the thing we need to get done is this hostage deal and this ceasefire deal. We need a ceasefire. We need the hostage deal.
Again, this is where Kamala Harris is so confused on the issues. Because who is going to run the second state? If you want a two-state solution, who's going to run it? You got the Palestinian Authority. They're a terrorist organization. I don't want them running and giving them now the moniker of a nation. No, thank you. Do you want Hamas running it? No, thank you. We know the people of Gaza, the so-called Palestinians, they can't run it. They've elected Hamas to lead them. This is it's either naivete on behalf of Kamala Harris or she knows. So, again, I don't use the term anti-Semitism because I think it whitewashes the issue. It's a hatred of Jews. And even though Kamala Harris is married to a Jewish man, I think she hates the Jews. There's no other way to explain what is going on about this. Now, she was asked, moving topics here, because I have been calling on her to be asked, calling on the media to ask her about reparations. Does she support them? This is a radical idea. We know that she does. We know that when she was in California, she openly supported the ideas of reparations. But now you're on a national stage. Reparations wildly unpopular in the United States. Not just among whites either. Blacks too. They know it isn't fair. You don't take money from one group of people, give it to another, and you're taking it from a group of people who don't deserve to be punished and giving it to a group of people who don't deserve to be rewarded. None of us were slave owners. None of them were slaves. So this reparations idea makes no sense. Well, she was pushed on that.
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, Sheila Jackson Lee, she was an extraordinary leader who we just recently lost. And she was
You see how she doesn't answer the question right away? This is her stalling. This is a tactic. She doesn't know what the answer is. She should be prepared for this question. She's not. Come on. What's going on here? Why isn't this playing? Let's see. Let me start it over, I guess. Close.
Well, first of all,
we'll try it.
As you mentioned, Sheila Jackson Lee, she was an extraordinary leader who we just recently lost. And she was a friend and a real champion for so many issues. So I feel compelled to say that about her. On the issue of what we need to do going forward, look, first of all, we just need to speak truth about history in spite of the fact that some people would try and erase history and try and teach our children otherwise. We need to speak truth about the generational impact of our history in terms of the generational impact of slavery, the generational impact of redlining, of Jim Crow law. I could go on and on and on.
So what is it? Do you support it or not? She could go on and on and on about all this, but she didn't. She didn't go on and on and on about it. She just stopped. Well, here's the bottom line. This gets back to my original comment. When you're trying to hide your views, you know what you have to do? You have to ramble on and on and on. When you have to hide your history and your past, you have to ramble on and on and on. Every now and then, you're forced to make an admission, like they do on the economy, that they have crushed, that they have destroyed.
It is sadly the state of affairs in our country that working people often have to decide to either be able to work or be able to afford childcare. Like they can't afford childcare and actually do the work that they want to do because it's too expensive and it doesn't actually level out in terms of the expense versus the income.
They've had 4 years to fix the problem. Now apparently she's the solution? Give me a break. Do you understand how arrogant this is? That she wants the American people to believe that she's going to fix this problem when she was the one who created it. Her and Joe Biden and the radical Democrats that are in office. So, come on. It's unbelievable to me that we have to go through this again and that we have to try to convince the American people of just how bad she really is. Why do I have to convince this of people? They don't see it? Are people that dumb out there? Heck, I know we're in California, and I know you all got neighbors who are that dumb. That's the reality of the situation. All right, I want to talk a little bit about this SAVE Act tied to the continuing resolution coming up in just a minute. Well, folks, I want to tell you about Patriot Mobile. You know, I have a Patriot Mobile phone. I'm so happy with it. Patriot Mobile is all about supporting the programs, causes, charities that believe in the things we believe in. Why would you be giving money to the big three woke cell phone companies that literally practice DEI policies inside their corporate structure? They literally fund places like Planned Parenthood, when you could be with Patriot Mobile that's supporting our veterans, that's protecting our gun rights, that is literally taking the fight when it comes to free speech to the left, putting "In God We Trust" signs in schools, and for this, the media comes after them so hard. Patriot Mobile. I urge you to get a Patriot Mobile phone. Hey, I got a Patriot One plan. One phone, 2 lines, 2 different networks. So in an emergency, one network's down, I got it covered. PatriotMobile.com/grant. PatriotMobile.com/grant. That's where I want you to go. Use the promo code GRANT for a free month service. And I promise you, you are not going to regret it. You can call them at 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, and you tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right. The media is out of control. We know that. I believe when it comes to this assassination attempt on President Trump's life, 2 of them, we know there was a third, the Iranian attempt. And I'm going to get into this a little later, but they may be connected, that Iranian attempt and this latest attempt. This guy's got some ties to Iran. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the media and its all-out assault on President Trump, when you think about threat to democracy, threat to democracy, threat to democracy, they're basically giving lunatics out there a wink and a nod to go after President Trump. Then you look at what the media did to President Trump during the debate with Kamala Harris. That David Muir and Lindsey Davis, they are despicable human beings. And it turns out the more you get into their background, they are hardcore leftist liberals, which we knew, but they're open about it. And apparently inside ABC, they're known to be hardcore leftist liberals. Well, congratulations to all of you. You have had an effect on David Muir. His World News Tonight, viewership has dropped 12%. This is the power of the remote control. This is what I mean when I tell you, if you don't like what you see, turn the channel. And it works when you turn the channel. So President Trump has a new ad out that basically highlights or lowlights of just how despicable the mainstream media is.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
Press always asks me, don't I wish I were debating him? No, I wish we were in high school, I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish. I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
That you cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Kristen Welker, how do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
When they go low, we kick.
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
All right, so you want to know my only problem with that commercial? Is that we go back in time and we use a lot of old stuff. I mean, it shows the history of it. There's newer things they could have used. This threat to democracy over and over again, President Trump's a threat to democracy, is bad news. When you have pundits on MSNBC saying that they think MAGA is a domestic terror threat, now they're not just wanting you to go off on President Trump, they're wanting you to go off on all of us. They say MAGA is a threat. Well, Peter Doocy was asked about this. Peter Doocy asked Karine Jean-Pierre about this. Dan on the phone, man, what number was that soundbite from Karine Jean-Pierre? 24. Oh, there we go. Yes, sir. So Peter Doocy asked Karine Jean-Pierre about the use of the word threat and associating that with President Trump. And it was an unbelievable interaction. And it sums up who the Democrat Party is today.
2 days since somebody allegedly tried to kill Donald Trump again. And you're here at the podium in the White House briefing room calling him a threat. How many more assassination attempts on Donald Trump until the president and the vice president and you pick a different word to describe Trump other than threat?
Peter, if anything from this administration, I actually completely disagree with the premise of your question, the question that you're asking. It is also incredibly dangerous in the way that you're asking it because American people are watching.
American people are watching you, Karine Jean-Pierre. You're the worst press secretary in the history of America. How dare you say the threat is asking the question? You literally use violent rhetoric against Republicans. Now think about this. When do Republicans resort to violence? They didn't during the Black Lives Matter protests. They didn't over the Israel-Hamas war, like we saw on college campuses. Republicans didn't resort to violence. Heck, we can go all the way back to the Rodney King riots right here in L.A. We didn't resort to violence on that. Who resorts to violence? It's Democrats over and over again. Who tried to kill Steve Scalise and other members of Congress? Democrats did. Who tried to assassinate the most recent sitting presidents and former presidents? Who tried to assassinate a former president? Democrats did. Where is the gang violence originating? In Democrat cities. The Democrats are the party of violence. And the media wants to say somehow that Republicans are a threat to democracy and safety and security, when all I see are these Democrats that are the biggest threat to us as a nation, to our safety and security. So we'll stay on it, I promise you. And I told you I would talk about this SAVE Act, and we'll get to that in a moment. But it's bad news right now. What Kamala Harris is doing, what Karine Jean-Pierre is doing, gaslighting the American people, they're the greatest projectors of all time. If you hear them accuse us of something, you better believe it is them that is doing it. All right, does anybody notice a difference with me? I've lost now, yes, if you can believe it, 12 pounds in just 3.5 weeks on the Energized Health program. The secret is in the science, but it's also in the simplicity. I am not killing myself with workouts. Yes, I work out with weights, and I always had, but I've added in a very small workout to this program. Super easy. I have a diet plan now. I am never hungry. I don't feel like I'm struggling through this diet. It is super simple. And I'm getting myself hydrated. It is all about cellular hydration, and the results you can achieve are absolutely astonishing. And I'm telling you firsthand, folks, I got involved with them. They came to me and said, hey, we want you to try this out. I said, okay, I could tighten things up a little bit, and bing, bang, boom, I'm on track, man. And I credit energizedhealth.com/Grant, energizedhealth.com Repreparations.com/Grant. There's coaching involved in this. There's recipes involved in this. The plan is all laid out for you. And again, it is super simple. This is life-changing, mind, body, soul. It's a total body transformation. God bless the folks at Energized Health who are helping me. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. Check them out today. Folks, there's a couple unbelievable stories surrounding Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, everything going on in the Middle East right now. We have Gays for Gaza, this LGBT group almost going to give $1 million to the quest for Hamas to win. This is like just absolutely nuts. And then the craziest story, one of the craziest stories I've seen in a long time, and I've seen a lot of crazy stories, is Hezbollah operatives got their asses blown off, to put it bluntly. 2,800 people injured in an attack on Hezbollah through their pagers. Now, I didn't even know people were using pagers, but apparently Hezbollah gets a new shipment of pagers, beepers, whatever they are. That's how they communicate. All at around the same time, within an hour of each other, all across Lebanon. These pagers explode and blow these guys up, injuring some bystanders. Maybe fortunately, maybe unfortunately, I don't know. But you know, as my friend Dr. Sebastian Gorka says, you mess with the bull, you get the horns. This is one of the greatest operations I think I've ever seen. Well, I want to bring in our very good friend in this program. On this program is Joel Pollack. He has been instrumental in covering everything going on in Israel. Joel Pollack with Breitbart.com. Welcome to the program, my friend.
Good morning to you.
So why don't you tell me about this crazy story? I saw it. You wrote about it. I saw it on Breitbart. Tell me what's going on here.
I'll tell you what I think we know for certain, because there's a lot of speculation. But what we know is that several thousand people who are officials within Hezbollah, which is an Iranian-backed terror organization, were carrying these pagers in the mid-afternoon hours yesterday when they overheated and exploded. And this happened all within about half an hour, so it was almost simultaneous. And some 2,750 people have been confirmed wounded. I think 12 were killed. And there were a few bystanders who were wounded or killed, but most of the people who suffered were senior Hezbollah officials. And in that regard, it's the most successful targeted operation at terrorists probably in the history of the world, because it only hit the senior members of the terrorist organization.
All right, so
and to a very great extent. I mean, the number of other casualties was very small.
Which is good. So I read in your article, one of the philosophies is this was malware and overheated. You know what, Joel? I'm calling bogus. There's no way you're going to overheat a pager so it explodes. The video of these things is like a bomb went off on these guys. I think these pagers, somehow they infiltrated the pager company. They loaded them with explosives and they managed to set them off at the same time. There had to be explosives in these things.
That's the current theory. So initially there were reports that malware had caused the pagers to overheat and then the lithium batteries to explode. But further analysis suggested that there had to be some sort of explosive substance inside the pagers. And it looks like the people who did this, Israel hasn't claimed responsibility, by the way, but it's most likely the Israelis, they got into the supply chain. The company that manufactures these pagers is Taiwanese, and I think some of the assembly was done in Hungary, and it's not clear at what point they got into the supply chain, but essentially they sabotaged all of these pagers. Now, you might ask, why did Hezbollah order a bunch of pagers? It's because Israel has been using the geolocation on cell phones to target Hezbollah leaders. That's part of the way they got Fuad Shukr, who was the number 2 in Hezbollah, also, by the way, involved in the bombing of the U.S. Marines barracks in 1983 that killed 241 servicemen. So he was on the most wanted list for the United States as well. And he was apparently targeted using a cell phone. So after that, Hezbollah decided to dump their cell phones and to go with pagers that had some kind of functionality where they could only be reached by Hezbollah leadership. And so the entire senior elite levels of the organization trusted this new pager network they had set up. But Israel somehow got wind of it and appears to have infiltrated the supply chain and used this to not only target the senior terrorists, but also to knock out their communications network. They don't have a way.
Oh, Joel, we lose Joel. So what's interesting, and we get Joel back. Dan, why don't you just tell me in my ear when we get him back? What's so interesting about this is that Joel mentioned Taiwan and Hungary. Now, Hungary and Taiwan would most certainly be on the side of freedom, on the side of Israel. Hungary has had just such an amazing turnaround when it comes to capitalism and freedom in that country now that this would be necessary to implant explosives into these pagers. But to create a plan like this and to have it go off as it did, no pun intended, only the Mossad would be able to plan something like this, in my humble opinion. So, Joel, we got you back. I want to ask you before we let you go. Joel, I'm now seeing that Queers for Palestine, Gays for Gaza, want to raise $1 million here in the United States for a gay pride parade in Gaza. They run a gay pride parade in Gaza. It could be Gaza's next terrorist attack. They will literally blow up the entire parade. They want to lop their heads off if you're gay in Gaza. What are American gay and lesbian, bi, trans, alphabet city people thinking in this country, sending $1 million for a gay pride parade in Gaza?
I saw that story and I thought it was a parody. I thought it was a prank. You know, people basically saying we will raise $1 million if you can arrange this parade. And obviously they can't. First of all, nobody can get into Gaza right now if you're not in the Israeli military or a journalist or a UN aid worker or something like that. You're not going to Gaza. But secondly, obviously, there's this weird impulse on the far left and among LGBTQ activists to embrace the Palestinian cause. It is illegal to be gay in Gaza and in the West Bank. Palestinian society is extremely intolerant of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, whatever. Meanwhile, in Israel, it's a very tolerant society. As controversial as transgender people in the military is over here, it's actually been widely accepted in Israel for quite some time. So, you know, there's this idea on the left that you have to adopt the most radical position as an expression of your individuality, which calls to mind that Monty Python movie where they're all individuals together at the same time in the same way. I mean, they're all just part of this mob mentality. Yes.
Just explain to me briefly. A gay pride parade like we see in downtown Los Angeles with all the trannies running around, flopping their stuff around. What would happen to them in Gaza?
They'd probably be given pagers and told to enjoy themselves.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's exactly what would happen. Joel, you are doing great work over there at Breitbart, Breitbart.com. We always appreciate you coming on the program. And why don't you give everybody your social media handle so they can find you?
I'm at Joel Pollak, JoelPollak on Twitter, now known as X, and at Breitbart.com.
That's about as easy as it gets. Joel Pollak, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
You got it. So, folks, you can see what's going on here. We got the Mossad doing it right, okay, living in reality and coming up with the most creative plans I've ever seen to take out your enemy, blowing them up with pagers on their hips. And then you have the idiocy of the radical left in the United States that think they're going to have a gay pride parade in Gaza. And as Joel said, the Gazans would be handing out the pagers to those people taking part in the gay pride parade. My Lord. You cannot make this up. You know when Joel said he thought it was a parody? He's right. It's like a Babylon Bee headline. For crying out loud. I'm going to ask you a question, folks. Do you have an emergency medical kit from the wellness company with all of the antibiotics, antiparasitics, antivirals that you need? I have multiple kits. I've refilled some of these kits. Speed of delivery when it comes to getting medications into your body during a time of need is critical. Check this thing out. I mean, how cool is this? Amoxicillin in here. A Z-Pack is in here. Oh, by the way, ivermectin is in here, right? So you come down with COVID, you start popping that. They got a handy dandy little guidebook as well that will help you through the use of all of this. This is the guidebook. It works great. Folks, you got to have one of these kits. You should have ammunition, water, food, but you need prescription medications as well. The Wellness Company can help you with that. TWC.health/grant. TWC.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off, and I promise you, you will not regret having this. The only thing you'll regret is not having it when you need it. TWC.health/grant. Get one today. Use that promo code GRANT. So here we go again. A continuing resolution is now being offered up to kick the proverbial can down the road. How tired are we of saying, let's kick the can down the road in Washington over and over again? But that's all we do. How else do you describe it? So Nancy Pelosi jams through a massive spending package when she's Speaker of the House that busts this nation beyond belief, that causes inflation because the amount of government spending has increased so much. They've got this Inflation Reduction Act, which, as Joe Biden even admitted, should have been called a Green New Deal Act. And our country is literally, in one blink of the eye, sent on a path to financial ruin. What do Republicans in the House of Representatives decide to do under the leadership of Mike Johnson? They decide, I guess, to approve this spending, and let's just keep spending at this levels for another 6 months so we keep the government open. But in order to appease conservatives, Mike Johnson says we're going to attach the SAVE Act to this. So the SAVE Act is a very important bill. And I want to remind you all that it has already passed the House of Representatives. So why are we voting on it again? It's already passed the House. The Senate needs to take that up. And the play, from my perspective, would be we're not taking up any spending bills until you pass this bill in the United States Senate. Pass it. And if it fails, it fails, but bring it up to a vote. Put the Democrats on record in the United States Senate that says, no, you should not have to prove you're an American citizen to vote in a U.S. federal election. What world or planet does a common sense individual think that's a good idea? I was talking to a gentleman on the plane. I was coming out for town hall on Sunday. Gentleman from India. He's an IT executive, came to the United States 15 years ago, got his American citizenship. And he says, in India, you have a voter ID card that is a national identification card. And in India now, I'm not a proponent of this, but they tie everything to this card, including your bank accounts. I said, I don't want the government tying my bank accounts to any card, but I'm happy to get a national voter ID card. Mexico has one, but we're racist for saying you need to show ID before you vote, and we're really racist, apparently, for saying you got to prove you're an American citizen. When meanwhile, Mexico, their main form of identification is a federal voter ID card. So now the trick of all of this is that Mike Johnson's going to say, well, look at us. We're being strong, and we want to preserve election integrity, and we want to keep the government open. So let's do a continuing resolution, tie election integrity to it. All our conservative friends, we think they're so stupid that they'll see what we're doing. Watch this shiny object, the SAVE Act. Democrats won't do it. Ultimately, Mike Johnson's going to be forced to pass a continuing resolution without it. And he'll say, but look, I tried. How about you do this? No on the continuing resolution and a separate vote on the SAVE Act. And the reason you say no on a continuing resolution is because it's not how business is supposed to be operated. So in the CR, I think there's 12 funding bills. 12 of them lumped into one just to kick the can down the road. So let's just add one more bill. Let's make it 13 bills. Folks, this is maddening. And they're going to try to trick you into thinking this is a good idea. You know how I know this? Look, I like Chip Roy often. Oftentimes I like Chip Roy. But sometimes I think he gets it wrong. And sometimes I think he gets it really wrong. This is Chip Roy on Speaker Johnson.
I don't think our Democratic colleagues can win elections if they don't have non-citizens voting. That's what they're actually afraid of. The fact is, what we put forward in this legislation is what everybody in America wants. It's certainly what Texans that I represent want. Which is that only American citizens vote in American elections.
So far, agreed, right? We agree. It's an important piece of legislation, but does anyone tell them, hey, didn't you already pass this out of the House? Why hasn't the Senate taken it up? Why is this being included in the CR?
And we took great pains. I'm a lawyer. As you know, I was a U.S. attorney up in Sherman, Texas. And we took great pains to ensure that this legislation would survive Supreme Court scrutiny on ensuring that we're not going to have any kind of real barriers or burdens on the right of any American citizen to vote. We're not disenfranchising anyone. We allow for a number of different options. Yes, passports. Yes, military IDs that have citizenship in it. Yes, real IDs where states have adopted citizenship. Those are singular documents you can present. But if you don't have those, and her numbers might be right, 60% or whatever. If you don't have those, you take your driver's license and a copy of your birth certificate. Most people can do that readily and easily. And if you don't have that, we have provisions to allow for states to be able to come up with other mechanisms, check against federal databases, find other ways. The key part being that those government officials will have to sign an affidavit that they have checked for citizenship. This is common sense.
Yes, it is common sense. Okay. Those are all the reasons why the SAVE Act is important. I thought that was the Chip Roy bite that we were going to soundbite that we were going to talk about why he's saying we need to pass the CR with the SAVE Act attached to it, which he believes we should be doing. But you got guys like Thomas Massey. You got guys like Matt Rosendale of Montana, who you know has become a very, very good friend of mine, that all agree you can't be doing this. This is the worst thing that you could be doing because, again, all you're doing is kicking it down the road. All you're doing is saying, you know what? Okay, let's continue Nancy Pelosi spending. Let's continue all of those things, and we'll be just fine. Well, in the end, in my mind, we're not just fine because this is the kind of spending that gets to be so very crazy. All right, before we go to break, I wanted to just switch topics just a little bit and play for you Hillary Clinton the other day. Hillary Clinton is out of control. So at one point, I think she was sly. I think she was smart. I think she was wrong on politics. I think she's a radical. And more importantly, I think she is one of the leaders of the deep state that is waging war against President Trump. Well, she joined Rachel Maddow and declared nonsense like this. This is what I mean when I tell you about these people are the party of violence.
I don't understand why it's so difficult for the press to have a consistent narrative about how dangerous Trump is.
How dangerous Trump is. He just had 2 people try to kill him.
Great journalist Harry Evans one time said that, journalists should, really try to achieve objectivity. And by that, he said, I mean, they should cover the object. Well, the object in this case is Donald Trump, his demagoguery, his danger to our country and the world, and stick with it.
And stick with it? Stick with the thought that President Trump's a danger to the world so you can have more assassination attempts on his life? Because that is exactly what will happen. So she doesn't want to just wage war on President Trump. She doesn't just want to inspire would-be killers to take him out. She wants to jail all Americans that don't think like she does. That's you and me, folks. This is Hillary Clinton.
Just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
Wait a second. Engaged in propaganda, you're going to jail them. So propaganda may be true, maybe not true. Your propaganda, what you call propaganda, Hillary Clinton, may be my truth. So you are going to say I should be jailed if you think what I'm talking about is propaganda and I believe it's the truth? Even you, Hillary Clinton, for this nonsense, you just called for people to kill President Trump. I don't want you jailed because you did it in a way that was a wink and a nod. Okay? I don't want you jailed for that. I'd like you jailed for other things. Lock her up was a great old chant because they were guilty of crimes against humanity, crimes against the United States. many respects you could offer up they were guilty of treason. I know Joe Biden certainly is. But I don't want you jailed for your words. I don't want Bernie Sanders jailed for his words. I don't even want Ilhan Omar jailed for her nonsensical words. It's America. But again, the Democrats do not understand what it means to live in a country of freedom because they don't embrace freedom. And that's the bottom line. You're going to vote for that for President Kamala Harris, someone who agrees squarely with Hillary Clinton. This stuff's nuts, folks, and it gets nuttier by the day. I'm Grant Stinchfield. I'll tell you what, nuttier by the day is the absolute truth. And so, what do you do, though? I mean, President Trump, when you think about what President Trump has been through, and I mean this when I tell you this, how much strength does it take to go out into public after people have fired upon you twice, after people have gone after you twice? Literally, now we've talked about the Secret Service not actually protecting him, making the appearance that they're protecting him, but not really protecting him. Who do you trust? Do you not have PTSD? I mean, you bullets whiz by your head at a rally in Pennsylvania. Then just a month or so later, you get another assassination attempt. Bullets ring out while you're playing golf at your golf course. I would have PTSD. I really would. Now, I would like to believe that I'm strong enough, that I have the will, the courage to keep moving forward. And I actually think that I do. But boy, it would be an awful big concern. And I would feel for my family. And I'd be really concerned. What's next? They're going to try to kill my kid? Can you imagine President Trump when he must think about his wife and his kids and Barron, who's got to go off to college and all of these things and everybody around him? And yet he still pushes forward and still moves forward. This is why we need this man in office, folks. There's no doubt in my mind that that is the case. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I so appreciate you joining me today. GrantStinchfield.com is the website. Please subscribe to the podcast. I appreciate you watching. You know, Rumble is one of the best platforms out there because they do not censor us. Facebook's still engaging in censorship. By the way, Facebook, all right, we know that the podcast that I did yesterday about this Lexus girl who's had a cocktail of vaccinations and now is having these adverse reactions where she's swollen and black and blue and all these things. So Zuckerberg comes out and writes a whole letter to Congress saying he's not going to censor anymore. He regrets it. And then I learned on Instagram, you can't even put this girl's name in anymore. They're censoring those posts. So he's lying to us. So my point is, Rumble doesn't censor. We say what we need to say. We talk about the truth on here, and we aren't punished for it. So please like the page, like the podcast, share it if you can, copy the link, share it on the other platforms, Twitter, and, subscribe. And sign up for the email list, too, if you can. It's a great way for me to keep in touch with you. God forbid anything happens. You can do that at GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com. I appreciate all of you. No Real America's Voice show tonight. There is a Trump rally that is overtaking my time slot tonight on Real America's Voice. No big deal. We'll be back there tomorrow. And we'll have another podcast for you here tomorrow morning around the same time. Stinchfield's Army rolls because of all of you. God bless every one of you. We'll see you soon.